All right, so we're going to talk about Revolutionary Girl Utena, and I mean, my reaction, having watched it, is that it's so basically it was sold to me as some kind of a shoujo version of Evangelion or something. Um, as a
You can sort of see that inside the show, like in terms of how strange it can be, in terms of the strength of directing, and how esoteric the plot gets. You can see why people make the comparison.
yeah.
Also, there's some pretty fucking wild color choices as well. So, the bit of the psychedelic as well.
Yeah, I thought that the series, so that's a TV series and a movie, and I thought that this series was tastefully stylistic, but the movie on the other hand was just gaudy. um,
Mhm.
s-
Yeah, it seems like with the movie, they were just like, let's make the most colorful backgrounds we can possible.
it,
Mm.
it felt like watching a 1 hour and a half long music video, really, when it comes to the movie. Um, yeah, but back to the series, like it was sold to me as sort of subversion of shoujo or something. Basically,
Uh,
no, you don't think so. Just like Eva is often sold as a subversion of mecha or something. I don't know. I don't even
the,
know.
the funny thing is that like there's aspects of Evangelion that you consider subversives, like for example, and let's say back in like say the 70s, going with the Go to Guy shit and all that stuff, like the father gives the boy the mech, and the father dies, and the boy has to carry on his son's footsteps to fight the evil aliens or the invaders or the demons from hell, right? With Ava, the father's not dead, the father is distant, and every 14-year-old boy has to save the world, but when you're an emotionally damaged 14-year-old boy, getting in the robot and saving the world isn't as easy as it looks.
Um, I don't know. Like, whereas here, what do you have in terms of subverting shoujo? Not nothing. I mean, um, nothing. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, nothing. Like,
Um. Yeah.
Okay, but it's easy to talk about what other people think about the show. It's better to talk, at least at first, about what the show is.
Okay, then you do it then.
Miraculous, take
Oh,
it away.
gee, thanks. Revolutionary Girl Utena. It's a show. It opens with a pretty regular high school. And you open with this flashback where Utena was apparently long time ago visited by a prince, told to never uh give up the nobility inside her heart, and she basically decided from that moment forward, she so admired the prince that she wanted to sort of become like him. And so we're introduced to Utena. She
Basically, a
goes.
tomboy.
Yes, she's a tomboy. She goes to school in this tomboyish uniform that does look semi princely, but also kind of feminine. And all of a sudden, just during the middle of all this, there's a bunch of playboys all over who compete for the attention of girls in this high school. One of Utena's best friends writes a love letter to this guy. He throws it out in the middle of campus and humiliates her. And so Utena, rather understandably, challenges him to a duel. And he goes,
Based.
"Oh, you wanted. Oh, you're the like sixth or whatever. Very well. And so Utena thinks, oh, this is just going to be a kendo duel with like little kendo swords. No. So he has to go up this
Magic escalator, by
indeter-
the way, with this epic theme
indeterminately
music.
indeterminately large stairway of stairs.
With this
Uh,
epic music playing in the background. Wow, what a such a normal kendo duel. You know, Hercules. I once had a kendo duel with some guy. I had to hike up like a mountain. There was like some epic music playing in the background, and like a wise old man guiding me up the mountain.
Dude, I was just thinking of like Seto Kaiba and his complaints about endless stairs, and how he was going to assault the person that invented the stairs. I feel like that's how I'd be after climbing all those stairs.
Hercules, we should do Yu-Gi-Oh at some point after that. Like talk
I've
about
never,
Yu-Gi-Oh.
I haven't watched like the original since I was a friggin' kid. I just know the abridged series. But anyways,
Okay,
uh,
continue.
the she gets to the top of the stairs. They're both given swords. They take swords out of the bosom of this woman named the Rose Bride. They fight. Uh, Utena manages to win, which involves stabbing the flower inside on a person's chest, and then they and so Utena has now apparently won the Rose Bride. And the Rose Bride, who's named Anthe Himimia, she decides to start following Utena around. She declares that now she's
Uta-sama,
going to live with her.
Uta-sama,
Utena-sama.
Utena-sama.
And and from then on, Utena sort of reluctantly gets dragged into this greater plot where apparently ownership of this school will result in you being able to break through the uh, to bring about the world revolution. So the letters from Mr. The End of the World to the student council that controls all in this school goes. Yeah, can I say this reminded me a lot of like Kingdom Hearts in terms of like the random uh just name drop end of the world.
Yeah,
That
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and
I mean, every fucking most of the episodes they say that like they're gonna start a revolution. So yeah, why not have an epic name like End of the World? Oh,
mhm.
yeah, I mean, from the very beginning, I didn't really care that much about, I guess, the mystery bit, or because I kind of understood that, uh, that I already experienced this when watching Eva. That like they're not going to explain um what's going
Jack.
on. Yeah,
Okay,
properly.
like the interesting comparison with this and Ava is Ava like will hint at answers and you'll sort of get like a general outline by the time you're done with it. This show specifically does not have like it does not explain itself. You will see a lot of very strange imagery like towards like the last third of the show. There's this thing where like all the guys will just hop into this big red car and it will generally be them like half naked and they'll be like driving into somewhere. And he'll
oh
talk
yeah, yeah.
about how
Don't
they're
forget, like,
driving
don't forget,
into.
like the jazzy music that plays in the background, and like the car just gets faster and faster. Listen, it symbolizes the acceleration of these characters are gonna start a No, all right. Now I'm gonna lay off the meme, but like, yeah, I get what you mean. Like, dude, the funny thing about that car thing, right? Like, it shows up in the fucking classroom. Like, just Kool Aid Man through the door. Oh yeah.
Okay, that at least has a explanation at the very end because they can just say, "Oh, Akio's projector projected it all."
Mm.
But by the way, in the third half of the show, I love how when they have the duels, they have like the cars just driving around.
Yeah, it's the weirdest fucking thing. You have
I'm like watching this shit.
cars
I'm like,
sticking
wow,
out of the
what this is?
ground. Okay, so we should probably back up a bit. The
Okay,
show,
I'm sorry, but like you talk
the
about the car shit, and it's the first thing that pops in my mind is the fucking car duels.
yeah. The show follows a pretty strict formula of you get introduced to some character or some character you've already been introduced to. You go through some of their background, some of their issues, and for some reason, either because of personal reasons to accomplish something, or because they get they're just suffering through trauma and someone basically seduces them and forces them to fight against their will. They decide to fight before Utena up on the stage for that episode. There is 4 minutes of stock footage just getting up to the start of the fight, and then there is about a minute of actual footage in which they fight, and then the fight is resolved. Maybe that person resolves their issues, maybe they don't, and that is end of episode. Repeat to next episode.
Yep.
Yeah, it never gets that much more different. I guess were there episodes without duels?
The only episodes that aren't like that are the Nanami episodes for the most part. And oh, okay.
I mean, that's supposed to be
So
comedy, I guess.
it is. Okay. The show does have a pretty wide cast, and it does a pretty good job of giving backgrounds for them, and it does make you care about all these characters, except for a certain one who is so bad, so cretinous, you simply couldn't. You simply want to see her suffer. Nanami is like the mean girl's mean girl. She is the platonic ideal of a mean girl. There is basically not a single episode where she is not trying to absolutely humiliate someone in some very cruel way. I like trip them up or purposely spill
And
stuff
like
all
one
over
episode
them.
that really
Oh.
shines through is when she goes over for, I think it's Mickey. He goes over for a study session, and
Mm.
like she's always continuously trying to sabotage. If it is it, I forget some of the names, but it's Anafi, right? No, what else? How do you
A-
pronounce her name?
Anti or
Anthe,
Anthe.
yes.
Anthe. Like continuously trying to sabotage her, and all of them like just backfiring on her face. And I'm like watching this. I'm like, yes, you get what you deserve.
Mm.
yeah, but it's not like her character grows in any way. It's just a joke.
No, that's not true. She does. She grows at the end because basically she finds out. So to add on top of things, she is completely in in love, obsessed with her older brother, and everyone thinks that's kind of a little weird. And it's kind of not clear to what extent she like means this or not, but she does like completely idolize him, is protective of him, etc. And her big brother is like a playboy who sleeps around with like everyone. Most male characters are like that in this show. but towards the end, Nanami realized somehow the secret gets spilled that Nanami was actually adopted. She starts to see some of the actual ways that her big brother actually manipulates a lot of people, and she slowly sort of becomes disillusioned by almost everything. Everything that she thought she knew uh, she can't agree, or uh, just sort of falls away from her eyes. I mean, again, the show does have pretty good character moments,
Yep,
even
decent
if
development as well for
even
most of the
if
cast.
even if like I hate this particular character so much that it was like, okay, that's interesting, but I it helps that she is dumb and she is shallow.
Oh yeah, she's as shallow as a fucking kiddie pool.
Mm.
Like,
Oh yeah, there is, to be fair, an episode that's parodying that, where she gets this bell in the
yeah, the
mail.
cowbell episode, that was funny. And
Uh,
like a little like Shota like sidekick that loves her is just like, Nanami, why are you acting like this? She's like, moo, and he's like, oh shit.
okay, so this episode actually showcases what a tenuous grasp on reality Utena has. So the show. So Nanami gets this cowbell in the mail, and she thinks it's from like Simon and Schuster or some special jewelry company. And Nanami is literally so shallow, so bourgeois, that she has no idea what a cowbell is. She just assumes this is some kind of
Rare jewelry, like, oh, it's some priceless artifact or some exotic jewelry. Yes, yes, I will wear this. I will wear this.
yes, exactly. And so she just wears it around, and everyone goes, "What the fuck is wrong with her?" And she goes, "Oh!" And then she starts mooing. And he goes, "Moo, blah, 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 moo." And she slowly starts turning into a cow, a, a,
A literal
a,
cow.
a literal cow. And the people around her have to eventually point this out to her, and try and get it off her, because the cowbell and her belief in it is causing her to become a literal cow.
I mean, honestly, I didn't find that episode that funny. Same with the one about the egg, when she thinks that she has
Yeah,
to.
the end was very boring.
Yeah, oh,
Like I will say that I find Nanami's episodes like the most boring. I really like Miki though. I thought him and his sister's thing was a bit interesting.
Mhm. I liked,
Um,
yeah, I mean, I liked what they did with Shuri, I believe the name is, voiced by Masato, like same Japanese VA.
I see, I see. I'll.
Yeah, she I felt like had some of the most detailed episodes, because you had like this very wild stuff between her uh this love triangle between her, I'm actually blanking on their names, but there used to be this three-way friendship with her, a female classmate of hers, and their
the
boyfriend.
captain of the kendo team, the
Yeah,
kendo
captain of
club
the
or
kendo
fencing
team.
team.
Yeah,
Fencing. That's right, fencing.
yeah. And so because of and there's this constant background of stuff between them, where initially you think Joey's really upset that this girl took the captain of the fencing team, no, it later turns out that she had the hots for the girl, and she can't. And it drives her up the wall that she can't. That this other girl never noticed. Then she starts to notice, but she's actually really devilish about it. And this other and the captain of the fencing team, who later broke up with this girl, basically says to her, basically tries to prove to Joey that this thing wasn't worthwhile. That he shouldn't stay. That this woman is not worthy of affections, and he tries to prove that to her.
And what I really find that's quite tragic about it is that like he dies doing that. Like
Yeah, I believe the idea is like he had some sort of like terminal illness or something like that, and
yeah,
he base and it's sort of interesting what they're doing, where on the one hand he's being super manipulative to Joey, uh, uh, sort of slapping her around, forcing a kiss on her, etc.
yeah,
Which is
playboy shit. Like when he shows up, right? You think like, oh, he's just another player. Like he's kicking game. He's a playboy. Like a little bit, but like you finally understand. Like no, he's actually dying and he's trying to save her.
yeah, he's trying to basically show her how petty this other girl is.
And basically he's just like, well, I'm gonna die. I've got limited time left. I might as well just save my friend before I have to go. And it's like when you find out he dies, I'm like, wow, Jesus,
Yeah,
I thought you were an asshole, but man, I gotta have some respect for you.
yeah, and it is interesting, and it might be some sort of commentary about the fact that he has to communicate such a thing in such a strange and backassward way.
So I believe that this was not an original anime but a manga adaptation. Um,
Uh, yeah. Well, on that, I found it rather unclear because there was a manga, Revolutionary Girl Utena, which came out like exactly a year beforehand, and it had only 5 volumes, like barely anything, and it ran until slightly after the end of the anime. So I really don't. I feel like there's probably not that much. I mean, I've never read the manga, but I feel like for the most part, this can basically be treated as a original anime.
Extended cut.
Yeah,
Like it honestly, I have heard that there's like a manga and then there's like an anniversary manga that's like different and shit, and some of the relationships are a bit more incestuous, which we'll get into when we get to it. But like, I think Revolutionary Girl Utena is like they read this manga, right, and they thought like there's some interesting ideas here. Let's just take this a bit further. Let's just take these ideas further. So I think Revolutionary Girl Utena is like it's partially manga and then anime original. Like it's kind of like they just took the ideas and kind of extended them,
mm,
which is an unheard of.
I see. Um, it it does feel a little bit drawn out to me. Like some of the
yes,
duels, like some of the motivations for some of the characters who are manipulated into dueling. The main Utena, like it kind of felt artificial. Like we need to have a duel. So, um, yeah, let's have one
it,
essentially.
yeah, it has a feeling like you know how there's a certain type of mecha show where every episode has to end with a big fight scene. It can feel a little bit like that. Only difference is like there's a lot less time devoted to the fight scene and a lot more time devoted to just build
The
up stock
characters
footage.
and stock footage, yes.
Yeah. Uh, I've heard that this show did not have the greatest production budget, and that does not surprise me in the slightest. But to be entirely fair, this show has absolutely stunning directorial work. The shots and
Oh
angles and
fuck yeah.
whatnot. This is on a level basically up there with Evangelion, and you basically will not find modern anime this well directed.
Yeah, like it's actually quite amazing how much the director was able to do with what they had. I mean, like you said, the direction, the color palette, the music, like directing wise, this is very good. And it's
Oh,
actually quite amazing what the director was able to do with what he had,
mhm.
which makes it even more spectacular.
Unfortunately, it inspired Steven Universe, though.
Um, I would argue this, along with other things, in inspired Steven Universe. I wouldn't say this solely, but like I will say that the Tumblr crowd does like this one. So
Oh, very much so. To the point where I'd say that is the main audience for this point, which is kind of funny
a
in a
shame.
way. That's a shame, but it's also kind of funny because this show has a lot of very thin, almost anorexic character designs.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some character redraws where people on Twitter and whatnot try to make the characters quote unquote
Oh,
more realistic.
oh,
Uh,
Ugh.
yeah. Um, okay. Um, but I mean, if you take a, it's pretty. Yeah, it's pretty to look at. But it's also pretty episodic. And I personally jumped those the stock footage. I just couldn't be bothered to watch it over and over again.
at a certain point I did too. Uh like it's actually I find it fascinating because like stock footage like I'm coming from like essentially a mecha show background. I've not seen tons of like magical girl shows, but I know mecha and magical girl shows are very similar in this capacity in terms of you tend to have the whole bit of stock footage to like
Yeah,
basically
repeat
provide
transformation sequences.
yeah, and it's like provides hype and a reason to hype it up. And Utena's doing the exact same thing here. Thing is, usually, especially if you have like a very strong narrative arc going for that episode, you'll abbreviate those whole sequences in some way, and then you'll get to the fight scene. Utena never does that.
Nope,
Not
you get a
once.
full transformation sequence, a full epic her walking up the stairs, the
With
theme song Apocalypse Destiny playing in the background, the ringing of bells, you know.
yeah, constant Japanese chanting about the darkness of Sodom, the darkness of light, etc., etc. Just random
I
talk
think
about
one song
evolution.
mentioned like had fossil fuel as like a lyric.
Yeah,
Kind of
I'm. Sh-
pretentious.
oh, it totally is, but at the same time, it is so epic and awesome. I wholly approve of it.
Like if you would understand it right in Japanese, like because I understand a little bit of it. Like if you were to fully understand it, you'd probably cringe. But like it's in a foreign language, like Masasi, it's like this sounds fucking epic. And you realize, this thing about fossil fuel. What the fuck?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be like. So this show is sort of a metaphor about like breaking free from shit breaking free from abusive relationship and breaking free from adolescence. So I think it's kind of going for an evolution theme. Which, by the way, the student council opens a whole bunch of their lines with this line: "We are an egg." I'm slightly butchering this, but it's basically,
We're an egg. The world is our shell. I think it's like the world is an egg. We are the chick in the egg. If we do not break free, the chick will die. We will bring the world to revolution or
yeah,
something like that.
watch when I first heard that, and for the longest time when I heard that, I just thought like, okay, these guys are like crazy Mao idealists who want to like overthrow everything, but like no, and apparently this is supposed to be sort of a reference to adolescence. The idea that you'll basically get strangled if you and won't effectively won't be born if you don't move on. Or at least that's how I've most commonly seen it interpreted. I can sort of see that. I mean, it makes the most sense to me.
Okay, so I guess one of the major, and I wouldn't call it a theme, but basically, uh, what did you think? Did you feel like what did you think of the friendship between Anti and Utena? Did you like? Did you kind of feel like Utena cared a little bit too much without them giving an explanation as to why she cared enough so much about Anti, or do you feel like
Mm,
I
no, I
think
felt like that was
initially, like Utena was just doing that because that's just who Utena is. Like she likes to
yes,
help and like she wants to help people. Like I think it initially started out was that, and as time goes on, I think she did start developing a more of a like a bond with Anthony with Amphi or whatever.
yeah,
Fuck, I can't
Anthe.
pronounce her name. And Amphi, yes, Amphi.
Hmm.
Like I think initially it started out as like, oh, I rescued this girl from this abusive relationship. Oh, she hangs around me. Ah, she's all right. Bit annoying, but she's all right. That, and it just kind of went
Yeah,
from there.
yeah, and sort of it's like Utena is spends a lot of her time really trying to get Anthe. I guess you say to
To
really
make new
break out of
friends.
to make new friends, to break out of her shell. Because Anthe has this whole thing going on where she doesn't really have friends. She's
Or
very
a will
like,
of her own.
huh?
Or a will of her own.
No, no, she really does not. Everything, a whole lot of what she says is, "Well, the Rose Bride must. Well, the Rose Bride must," and I can almost hear Utena now saying, "Snap out of it," and like, isn't there something that you want to do? And to be fair, she does have interests. She has this little tiny cartoonish monkey that she keeps as a pet. And I guess you could say that's almost like the first clue in that Anthe is not a total doll or anything like that.
Like she has some hobbies, but like most of it is like the Rose Bride must do this. Yes, master. That type of shit. Like she doesn't really have much agency or free will.
No, not until the very end of this show.
Yeah. Um.
Wh-
Like honestly, I think for like the beginning couple episodes, like I think Utena. I mean, I don't think she viewed it this way, but it's kind of like a pet almost. Like
Mhm.
not like a pet, and it's just like okay, I've got to look after this chick. I've got to look after her.
Mhm.
yeah, I was looking at the Wikipedia, and they're comparing the adolescence of Utena to the end of Evangelion. Uh, I just don't see it. But yeah, I mean, so another thing which we have, which I guess I expected, given that this was called a subversion or whatever, I thought that if it was going to be a lot more grim, but it's not really. For the most part, I thought it was kind of lighthearted.
It varies. Like you will have characters that go through deep shit of their own making. It can be somewhat like the actual content is somewhat soap opera sometimes, but at the same time, I never felt like it was terrible or anything like that. Never felt like, oh, I just couldn't relate to this character's issues, or that I thought they were being entirely a baby, or that this would be easily resolved, or something like that. And so I think that shows like real skill on the part of the story helmers in the show.
So I mean, do you think? I mean, there's a lot of people who say that yeah, Utena has a social message. I mean, is that something which they just say, or like?
Well, well, we have to get to the ending in order to talk about that. Uh, so there is this character named Akio, and Akio, he is the head of the whole school. He's sort of
Yeah,
their
he's the school chairman.
headmaster, school chairman, whatever the name of the position is, and basic, he is also coincidentally the brother of Anthe, and he's this very charismatic guy. He's yet another male playboy, but somewhat even more so. Whereas whereas Sayonji and Toga, who are some of the two main male characters on the student council, whereas you can sort of easily see through their charms of seduction, and that they basically use women, use treat their conquest disposably. Uh, this Akio guy really comes across like the type of guy who's like the absolute gentleman, etc., etc., and you can totally understand how how a girl would fall for this guy. He's already engaged to someone, and that's how he's got like his position. But then it's like, oh, he's also sleeping with this person, and oh, he's making advances on Utena, and oh, he's like literally sleeping with the mother of his fiance, and it's like, oh, and he's fucking Anthe too. It's like,
Who is his sister, apparently.
yeah,
Yes,
yes, he is
a sister
committing
fucker.
open incest. Uh, so
Yeah,
this
he just
close,
does it without not a fuck is given.
not one fuck is given. We actually see it very nicely with regards to Utena. Is we as an audience slowly get introduced to all this stuff Akio is doing with the other characters. Yet Utena has no idea, and and we see her get like marginally closer with him, like each and every episode, where we're sort of introduced to him earlier on, and he's like, "Oh, yeah," and Utena goes, "Oh, you're Anthe's big brother. Oh, it's nice to meet you." And of course, he makes a very positive impression on Utena, and slowly they get closer. Eventually, he invites uh, her and
Oh, the
Anthe
stay at his house and
to
office.
stay at his
Oh, you know,
home. Oh, what a wonderful thing for him to do. And then it gets closer and closer. and then eventually him and Utena go on a date, and then eventually Utena just has to bring this like letter to Akio for whatever reason, and it's like, oh, and by the end of it, they fuck. It's like, oh, so it does showcase how well this guy is at really manipulating and bringing affections towards himself. He's very effective at it. That said, and he openly compares himself to Lucifer at some point. That
That's
said,
always a good
and
sign.
always an excellent sign. That said, up until the very end, he doesn't do anything that could be explicitly called. I mean, obviously, he engages widely in sexual immorality. But the interesting thing about that is he still treats every woman that he's sleeping with quite well. He doesn't like just say like, "Oh, you're yesterday's thing, whatever. Bye-bye. Don't care about you." He never does that with any of the women. And so, at least personally, I found it rather hard to hate him or dislike him in any capacity. I don't know about you two.
Um,
He's very likable. Like you can dislike some of the things he does is a bit scummy, but like he doesn't do anything like outwardly like evil, really.
yeah, and also like he kind of has a point when he tells Utena off a little bit, just a little bit, because Utena knew that he was engaged, but still slept with him. So
Mhm.
anyway, Fox has left some comments in the chat. He says, "You people already talked about the subverted Platonism in Utena. No, we haven't. Um,
Yeah, I've heard. I've talked to Fox a little bit about this. I don't. I'm not a huge Platonist, and I'm not as. I mean, I know the basic idea with like the idea in the world of forms and whatnot, and the show does play somewhat with the idea of like what is fundamental to be a man and a woman. And there's definitely themes of like, well, this is fundamentally what it is to be a prince. And there's this idea that Utana is somewhat transgressing against the standard form, I guess you could say, of being a woman. And there's this tension inside Utana, where on the one hand she wants to be a savior, on the other hand she is also a little feminine, and you see this tension where she's sort of more tomboyish at the start, yet as she grows to fall in love with Akio, she sort of becomes more and more like a princess, quote unquote. And Akio comments on this.
and that's a bad thing somehow, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting in terms of it's seeing, you can see the two sides inside of Utana pulling her either direction, and then by the end, because of plot circumstances, it pulls her back in the more tomboyish direction. Uh, but at the end of the day, I kind of don't find it that interesting, because at the end, it's just going to go. It'd be one thing if I expected, or at least suspected, that the show was saying or trying to say that these are inherent parts of Utana, these are inherent parts of what it means to be masculine or feminine, uh, and that it's okay for Utana to sort of like semi crossover into the realm of the masculine because that's part of her character, and she wants to become someone who can save people, and that's a noble thing in and of itself. But the impression I got, or maybe this is just the impression given by the people who commentate upon it, is that it's just giving the standard feminist view of like there are no absolute forms. Everything is like subjective. Be whoever you want. At which point it's like, well, okay, no real point in having these themes or discussing them. Then, I mean, maybe there is something more there. I don't know, but I've yet to come across someone who will make that point. And the fact that the movie goes in a very hard line, like lesbian feminist direction, makes me think that they were not trying to go for like anything more mild or in the middle there.
I kind of get the feeling that like their hands were tied by the censors when it came to the TV
Hmm.
series. So because of that, it came out better than it would have otherwise,
Hmm.
essentially. So Fox goes on to say, princess and uh, uh, prince and princesses following uh, fable logic in the world of forms, and Utena herself wanting to embody an archetype, but everyone falls short. Um,
Yeah, I guess you could say she somewhat falls short in that she does inevitably end up falling for a prince, which, by the way, we haven't mentioned, but Akio is actually her prince from way back in the day.
I don't know. I mean, does she fall? I guess, yeah. That's
Well, in terms of the fact that she ends up falling for this man for at least a little bit, and for at least a little bit, she's not attempting to save Anthe. She actually like walks in on Anthe at one point after she like fucking Akio, and she feels like a little bit betrayed and lashes out a little bit at Anthe. She doesn't kind of realize at the time that Anthe's been like this way forever, and that this is s- semi
Standard practice.
huh.
Yeah, this is like for her. This is just standard practice.
Yeah, yeah, it's almost not even something that Anthe enjoys, it's just something that she does. And you eventually Utena apologizes, says that she's been like very heartless, and that she hasn't uh done really been thinking about Anthe's feelings. I mean, me speaking personally, yeah, I can understand both reactions. I can both understand completely why Utena would come to that initial conclusion, and then I can also understand why she'd uh obviously over time change her mind and realize what's actually going on there.
okay. So Fox goes on to say, revolution as intended as eschaton, union between the world of forms and physical world, showed off at the same time as impossible and inevitable. Utena will do what Utena does. To be honest, I don't know what Fox is talking about there.
He's basically
Isn't it?
it's an idea of like somehow that bringing passing through the door to world revolution will somehow bring about a world where everything is in alignment with the world of forms, and thus essentially create a utopia because everything will be structured in the exact cosmic manner in which it's supposed to be. I mean, maybe that would be interesting, but again, and this is sort of the problem I have with the show is like if you're going to play with those themes, you basically have to uphold them in some capacity. Yet I never get the feeling like Utena is actually upholding those themes. I feel like it's just trying to subvert those themes. So, in which point it's just like none of this. If you're just trying to subvert those themes, well, then it just means none of that stuff matters. Again, I might be overemphasizing this. Maybe my viewpoint is biased based off of the many sort of feminist analysis essays that I've read on Utena, but that's my impression.
So he goes on to say the encounter redefines both dimensions, makes more sense because they are living ideas, and she becomes a car, and he drives her around the neighborhood. Uh,
Maybe that is what they're going for, but man, that is like wild.
it's in caps lock,
That
Uh,
isn't that is entirely wild.
so he goes on to say he's the prince of the fable in the beginning. I don't think they are framing it as a bad thing and ambiguously.
Mhm.
Yeah, lol, of course, it's just intellectualism on top of a Japanese anime. It's just that it's an interesting theme.
Hmm.
No, so in quotation marks, no absolute forms is a bit reductive. Um, the subversion of the show, in my opinion, honest opinion, is in the fact that the world of form is as fluid as the physical one. So
Hmm.
that's I guess how they can get away with not upholding.
I guess that's one possible interpretation. Uh but anyways, we still haven't gotten to the climax of this show, which is very strange. So, and this is why Fox makes a lot of deal about the world of forms because it's the only way to start to understand the plot. Because really, the plot will only make sense in that capacity. And you really see this when you come to the end of the show, where we're finally introduced to everything with Akio, and Akio basically explains. He actually helps Utena fully remember when he met her way back in the past. At that time, Akio was called like Dios, and had a slightly younger looking form. And we get a further back flashback of some village somewhere, and Dios seems to go around helping people, has some sort of powers, maybe, and he's exhausted. He's almost dying in this little village, almost barn. She's being tended to by his sister Anthe, and there's this mob around that's demanding that Anthe be bring out Dios and that Dios save him somehow, even though that will effectively kill him.
Kill
It's
him.
not entirely clear what they need Dios to save them from. And also all the villagers are wearing a lot of them are wearing suit and ties, so it's the show seems to be trying to make it clear that this is like somewhat metaphorical something. And you have Anthe goes out and she says, the prince has been like sealed away, you will never reach him again." To which At which point the mob gets incredibly angry and they mass stab Anthe. And apparently, this doesn't die. They call her a witch, and they stab her to. And apparently, somehow, this makes her an immortal witch who is apparently destined to get stabbed a lot and to be filled with swords if anyone attempts to break free through the door to world revolution. Or at least this is the way Akio views it. And yeah, and so basically this whole ritual to break through the door to reach world revolution involves uh forcing Anthe into this position of being a human sacrifice who will never die. Uh, Akio is totally alright with this. Uh, Utena, understandably, is not.
Isn't.
And at the end of this show, even as Utena is so close to Akio and does kind of love him, uh, she considers this just too far, and she decides to duel him on the platform. This time like a real duel. And Akio makes mention that your previous duels, those were all like kind of fake. That was
So
partially the
true.
result of my projector, which I can totally believe because not one of those duels actually resulted in the character getting injured in any way, not in the slightest. Uh, so they have this grand duel, and ultimately, at the end of it, Akio starts to win, and then Anthe just stabs Utena in the back. Says that no matter Utena wants to know why. Anthe says, "Well, at the end of the day, you're a woman. You cannot be my prince." And so at this point, you go to the next episode. Anthe is getting mass stabbed by the floating swords again. Uh, Akio is attempting to break through the door with his sword. Uh, Utena's crawling around on the ground, stabbed. Uh, and Akio attempts to break through. All that happens is his sword breaks. And so he sort of gives up and says, "Well, we'll just do this another time next time around." Utena, meanwhile, decides to crawl up to the door, attempt to open it, and ultimately she does. She finds Anthe inside a coffin in there, and she attempts to pull Anthe out of the coffin, and and she and reaches out her hand, tells Anthe to take out her hand, to put out her hand and have Utena save her, pull her out. They attempt to do this. Their hands touch. Anthe falls away into a bottomless pit, and then the castle in the sky that Utena and Akio were in both like evaporate into nothingness. And then we cut to some amount of months later. The main cast has pretty much entirely forgot about Utena. Akio's talking about, well, we're going to do the same thing again. We'll send out a new host of letters, get the student council to fight over the Rose Bride again. I'll be counting on you again, Anthe. And to which Anthe says, get it up here. You really don't know what happened, do you? By all means, stay in this cozy coffin of yours and continue to play Prince. But I have to go now. Utena is waiting for me. and she just walks out, and he goes, "Amphi," and Akio for like the first time starts to sound super panicked, and he shouts out to her, and there's this shot of Amphi taking her first step outside of the school itself, sort of leaving the idea of leaving Akio's domain. And she says that she's going to go search for Utena, and she without a doubt will find her. And that's the end of the show.
So what has that got to do with World of Form? So um,
I have less that I potentially, yeah, I frankly don't know. What I can say is it's clearly about the idea of Amphi's been very much this bird in the cage archetype with regards to a relationship towards Akio. You can almost view Akio, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but you could view it this way, Akio as almost being like this the perversion of a patriarch figure whose own desire to protect sort of a daughter figure eventually turns towards uh, immorality towards his daughter figure, and attempting to close her off from all other parts of society that might get in the way of that, and basically tries to monopolize her for himself. And at the end, Utena is kind of Anthe's prince who inspires her. Really goes out of her way for Anthe, and that eventually gives Anthe the courage to just walk out on Akio, and it's that point that Anthe realizes that Akio didn't really have much hold over her at all. All she had to do was take that step to walk outside his domain, and then she was free. That's all. So that definitely seems to be like a strong message that's coming through from the anime at the end. I don't know your thoughts, Bio Gundam.
Um, I kind of viewed it as that like she's becoming her own person, and the first step
Hmm.
is basically just saying like, "No, Akio, we're not doing that. Goodbye." Like that was like I kind of viewed it like I kind of viewed it as like her becoming her own person, and basically just telling Akio to fuck off, like goodbye.
Hmm.
hmm, all right. So I guess we can go to ratings. How would you rate this out of 10?
Wait, we haven't talked about other character shit.
Okay, who do you want to talk about then?
We could talk about the twins. We could talk about the Playboy. We could talk about all the other shit. We could. There's quite a bit to talk about. I mean, I talked a little bit of that stuff with Hercules in
Yeah,
private.
there's all the Playboys. Yeah, there's we've talked a little bit about Shuri and Miki. We can talk a little bit. I've kind of could you take like your take on Sionji Bio Gundam? Because it's actually been a little bit since I completed the show.
Yeah. So my take on Suonji, right, is that he's the type of guy, like he's trying to be like a real man, and like he's expressing it in a really like negative way. Like that is kind of like his character arc and shit. And like when he gets like kicked out of the school, right, and he's bunking with like Utena's friend, we actually see like a little bit of what he actually is.
Mhm.
And above the playboy arrogant shit is it's a front. Like
Yeah,
it's very much like a front he puts on because he's
and,
got to be like
yeah, and he's quite charming when he's alongside Wakaba, and it's very much this contrast because the first episode was actually set into motion because Sionji like humiliated Wakaba, put the love letter out in the open, now, for because of like various extenuating circumstances, he's like bunking with her, and Wakaba's always had this crush on him, and he's able to be uh, a lot more honest and genuine side by side with her, and you can very much see how Wakaba feel why Wakaba would feel so strongly towards him. But then it comes into this conflict where uh, at the same time, Sayonji wants to return to the campus, and he wants to make another bid towards Anthe. And that's sort of like the unspoken dynamic between him and Wakaba, and Wakaba's basically, I guess, sort of like Akira actually, wants to monopolize Sayonji to himself, not let him break free into there, because she knows the moment he does that she's going to lose him.
I guess my take on his character is that I kind of liked how because I kind of feel like if there was a character like Sion something modern and Western, then like um I mean you wouldn't have anything like a redemption or like showing him in any positive light
At
afterwards at
all,
all.
yes.
Uh,
At all.
Especially modern day.
Oh fuck no!
Yeah,
In modern day, they'll throw the book at this dude.
that is one of the interesting things about the show, is the attempt to humanize these Playboy characters. So Sionji's interesting in that he does have this genuine ethos towards him. Uh,
Like he in his way is trying to like embody like the virtues of samurai and shit.
yes, in his own way,
Like,
he is.
that's where he gets his this aspect of masculinity from, right? Except he like he's trying to be a real man, but he isn't like a real man, if that makes any sense. And he's manifesting it in a negative trait. And with the other Playboy character, now this was an episode that they cut out, but I think they may have included it in a manga or like a future manga. We find out with Toga that he was actually sexually abused and raped as a child by
Yeah,
like his adopt.
yeah, we haven't gotten into, yeah. Toga is like sort of the rival theoretical friend of Sionji. He's the red hair. He's the
They're
older
frenemies.
playboy. Yeah, they're frenemies. Thing is, like, Toga or Togo, I think it's Togo. Toga Kiryu. He basically views everything disposably. He doesn't believe in friends, doesn't believe in love, that shit. Uh, he basically views everything as posturing, and he's an incredibly cynical person deep down. Uh, the only exception is he starts to cop actual feelings for Utena towards the end of the show, seeing sort of like the nobility in her. And there's like a whole episode where he hangs around Utena, and he starts to realize that he does actually kind of love her, and so the final duel is actually a duel. Uh, basically, he for the Rose Bride, but he's basically just trying to keep Utena out of Akio's clutches, as he sees it. He doesn't trust Akio, and he, in his own way, is trying to save Utena. Uh, and there's this kind of interesting thing going on where he attempts to make the same old advances. Togo attempts to make the same old advances towards Utena that he makes towards the other girls, and you can tell he's kind of trying to be more genuine. But it just sort of bounces off Utena, and it's sort of like this matter of he he doesn't really know how to
Express
cut.
genuine affection.
No, he doesn't. Yeah, all he knows is how to play the game, and so as a result, Utena sees sort of semi sees through that, and it bounces off, even when uh, it started to become genuine for him. And I think Utena kind of recognizes that by the end of the show and kind of views him as sort of a pitiable figure.
Okay, then the blue-haired kid, which I guess is probably the only
Mickey.
Mickey, the only positively shown male character, sort of good guy.
Yes.
But he's, I mean, I don't know if he counts as male really.
He's clearly yeah, he looks like a girl. He's voiced by a woman, as is not uncommon for younger boyish male characters.
He also gets buck
Uh,
broken in one of the manga side stories by a cat. So
By who?
what?
don't worry about it.
Um,
Okay, that was something I did not need to know.
No, that was actually a thing. I was reading like a wiki page or something, and it just mentioned that. And I'm like, oh, okay, or something like that. I'm like, all right.
Okay. Yeah, Miki's sort of like the kind-hearted one. He tries to. He had like an honest, a pretty close relationship with his sister back in the day, um, and which eventually grew apart. Uh, Basically because he and his sister used to play piano together, and there was this one incident where he got sick. Uh, she They were both going to a concert to play together. He got sick, so only his sister could go. His sister was simply not capable, and she basically just ran off stage, and she never wanted to touch the piano again. And Miki, I think, feels a little bit of guilt. He wants to go back to like that close relationship that he used to have with his sister back then. He sort of projects that onto Anthe and sort of is like in love with Anthe because of that, because Anthe is plays the piano in her own spare time. So he sees like a former version of his sister inside Anthe, and he attempts to romance her and win her over from Utena via the duels.
do you?
Uh,
Yeah, go on.
yeah, I don't feel like there's much more to him.
I mean, do you feel like the thing with his sister, that basically his character arc was properly completed, or do you feel like it was just left there?
I think it's pretty completed. Like, there is a thing where like the sister's also like madly jealous of anyone getting close to her brother, and it's like it's not as incestuous as like in the manga or like as the movie portrays it, but like by the end of the show, their relationship is a lot more healthier.
They don't
Mm,
seem to talk that. Uh, do they talk
that
that?
much.
Yeah, by the end of
No.
the show. Um, right. Like I remember that scene where like um the losers are all playing tennis or something, talking about how um they care more about Utena or something more than whatever their love interest used to be. I mean, obviously jokingly. Um, okay, who else is there? We talked about Nanami, I guess.
I think we've discussed most of them. Like,
Yeah.
oh, unless you want to discuss like the Black Rose arc, where you had other duelists like Wakaba fight
I think
Utena and shit like that. Like, there isn't really much to talk about.
I think
Yeah,
that was the worst arc. Sorry, go on.
I didn't feel like there was much to think about it. It provides some sort of backstory in terms of this has apparently been like an experiment to like reach paradise or something, or the world revolution, and
Yeah, like the background lore is more
for
interesting than that what's actually going on.
and for somehow this guy back in the day sacrificed like all the other researchers, had them like die and get burned alive in order to like get further on in the research. I actually, it wasn't clear to me if that was like part of some sort of ritual to highlight to get things further along, or if he just saw them as threats, the other researchers.
Yeah, yeah. Also, I didn't. I wasn't that impressed by like the bait and switch about the prince or like um the Black Rose guy's friend, dead friend or whatever. Um, Actually, it's the prince, but no, actually, it's not. Um, yeah, it was just an illusion. I mean, what did you think? I kind of laughed a little bit at the feeble attempt at the end to, like, explain the castle in the sky and everything with the projector thing. Uh,
Mm.
I mean, okay,
Which only sort of like opens up more questions of how do you have this magical projector? That's very impressive.
Listen, he runs this fancy school. You don't think he doesn't have money? I mean, look at his car.
he doesn't run the school. Does he really? I mean, he's the chairman, but isn't he just the chairman because he's sleeping with the chairman, with the owner's woman's
Yes.
or something, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Correct.
okay. Um, I think we have discussed everyone, unless.
Yeah.
So I guess ratings, Heraclius.
I'd give the show a 10 overall.
A what out of 10?
6.
6. Okay. Um, what about you, Baganda?
I'll give it a 7. I think it's a very decently made show. Um, I definitely don't. Actually, it's more like a light 7 out of 10. Like, I think it's a decent show. I just don't think it is what everyone hypes up to be, or it being about what everyone says it is. Like, it's a very good show, talking about like teenagers and issues and all that stuff. It's very good for that. Um, I think it's a fairly decent show, but I don't think it's like the amazing thing that everyone paints it to be.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of feel like it's kind of been forgotten. Um,
To a great extent. Like, I can definitely see how people like it. Because, like, as I pointed out before, the direction is top notch. Some of these moments can be almost on par with the amount of drama that they get out of like a show like Evangelion, which does it very, very finely. Uh, the difference is that there's like a lot less context for these kinds of character and trauma issues, and it's also kind of hard to, I guess, take the show as seriously, especially when we get told at the start that there's that hey, owning the Rose Bride will lead to this, and we get like no hint of it actually leading towards world revolution until like the last couple of episodes. There's not even a hint that you're getting further along, or that Utena only has like so much more time. It makes the show feel like it's
tensionless,
entire.
I guess.
Yeah, sort of, yeah. Especially because like Utena's gonna win every time. There's like one time where she doesn't, but you know Utena's gonna win every time.
Yeah, I think I was very disappointed by the movie because I thought that maybe like the movie, uh, like or maybe like they had some limitations. with the TV series, and now they're going to clear up things. Um, or or maybe it's going to be like a, I don't know, like a like something like the end of Eva, basically. But obviously, with
No, you just get like a lot of symbolism. It's
um,
too deep for you, good student. It's just too deep for you.
yeah, yeah, and okay, so I'll give it a 7.8 out of 10. So the most important question. No, well, before that, Fox has another question. Which car? The one he drives or Utena? Uh,
Oh, Utena.
so yeah, the most important question, I guess, is who is best girl? Uh, let's go with you,
Yeah,
Biogan.
Utena.
is it? Yeah, is it cheating to say the main character? Like,
Mm,
honestly, I feel like she is like one of the strongest things for this show. Because she's just instantly likable because she wants to look out for others. She's very spirited. Uh, like you can totally see how this is the type of character, and of course she is popular in the show. But you can totally see why people would absolutely look up to this person and want to be like her, emulate her, fall in love with her.
right, and I also liked that at least in the TV series they didn't go out of their way to unnecessarily humiliate the other characters, except comedically, of course.
Yeah.
Um, Not the same, I would say, when it comes to the movie, especially with I don't know, with Ike,
Akio,
Akio's
yeah,
character.
there's something weird going on. Like part of Dios has like left Akio, so Akio isn't really Akio. He's like a shell, so he just sort of like falls off and dies. I didn't want to sort of like touch the movie because it is so strange, and I don't really know where to begin with it.
What about you, Baugan? I mean, anything to say about the movie that we haven't? Um,
No, like I just thought the movie was a bit crazy and weird and shit. I mean, I like the scene where they like dig up Akio's corpse. Everyone's like screaming and like, "Oh my god, he's dead!"
um,
That was such a weird scene.
uh, Fox says Auntie is a cold fish for 80% of the show. I vote Utena for waifu too. Yeah.
Yep.
At first, I would say to me as well, like Auntie seemed a bit creepy, uh, as well.
Yeah, she is. She has a little bit of that uncanny valley effect, and it doesn't help. Like during the entire show, you'll sometimes see like reflections and like a reflection in like her glasses, like the light will sheen off her glasses.
Yeah, yeah, and I kind of didn't really like her character that much, um, because there wasn't much to like, really. She was basically the damsel in distress or something like the way that people like to put it.
Yeah, that is sort of ironic, yes, because she yeah, people talk about her saving herself, and that's like partially true, but she like wouldn't have done anything without Utana. And you're right, she doesn't have tons of character to her besides being sort of like the
Oh,
closeted up girl, the doll, and her own internal views about that. She has tiny things outside of it, but like nothing super major.
Um, like I don't know, it was to an extent where I can kind of see why the other characters mistreated her to an extent. Um,
Oof.
so Fox says, "Don't be too mean to Auntie. She has autism." Yeah, that's basically the kind of feeling you get that she might slit your throat in your sleep, but no. Uh, all right. With that said, I think we can end the stream. What do you think?
Yeah,
Yep.
Okay. Thank
it
you.
sucks that Fahrenheit couldn't make it, but we had a good time.
Yeah, I guess I could show on stream his painting a bit. Why not? And then I'll end it.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought it was actually I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I thought so too, but he said he didn't want to use it as a thumbnail. Otherwise, I would have used it.
Yeah, I understand, but but actually fairly good. Like I liked it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Uh, okay, let me turn on display capture.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
since we're going to that, so should we like hint or what we're gonna do next?
well, first let me end the stream. Stop streaming.
Oh, you don't want to tease the audience or
Okay,
like one
okay,
of them?
okay. Let's tease them. It's the stream is long anyway, so whatever. Um, yeah. So for next week, Captain Tyler, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yep.
roughly next week or next ever, whatever next time we do meet.
Yeah. So yeah, I haven't rewatched it yet, but the last time I watched, I have rewatched it a couple of times, mostly because I was stuck somewhere with no internet, and yeah, I did enjoy it. So make sure to watch the dub, as I've said over and over again. Uh,
Yeah,
Is
the
it?
dub of it's pretty decent.
Okay. I watched the first episode in sub and I kind of like that, but
okay, okay. Um, let's see. Are there any other comments by thoughts? If not.